Hi, Cheri Fogarty here, author of How to Get Happier and More Grateful Children in Just 21 Days and founder of the Best Life Blueprint for Busy Families, where we show you step by step how to teach your children to design, create, and live their best lives. And today, I just want to talk to you about something that I think every mom and dad out there feels: completely stressed, overwhelmed, and overscheduled. We feel that way, and many of our children do too. And the question is, I get asked this all the time, what can we do about it? Nobody wants to seem to give up anything. They're on this treadmill, in this rat race, and they don't know what to do about it. They know it's not good for them, they know it's not good for their kids, but they don't know what to do. So I'm gonna give you 3 easy steps. Of course, I have trained on this and could train on this and teach this and write an entire book about this, and entire books have been written about this, but I'm gonna give you 3 super simple things you can put into action today to start reducing the stress and overwhelm. So the first thing you need to do, and you know this, is prioritize. You have to ask yourself, and the answer is most likely no. Is everything you're doing, is everything your children doing really, really important? Is it part of creating your best lives, or is it just busy work and things that have to get done? Yes, I know, I'm a real mom and I live in the real world just like you. Dinner, dishes, and driving need to get done. There are things that, yes, on a daily basis we need to do. That's just part of the job, that's just part of life. But I'm talking about the bigger picture. If you list everything you do each and every day, at work, at home, both places, with the kids, for yourself, I know it's extraordinarily long. I can't even look at my to-do list. It's overwhelming, right? But what you can do is start looking at that list and prioritizing what's most important. Aside from the things that have to get done, what's most important in your life? What's part of creating your best life? And start asking the question, when you have an opportunity or there's something on your list, look at each thing and say, if I only had 2 months to live, would I do this? And the reason I say 2 months to live is that I actually faced this 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer with 4 children under the age of 10. And I had to ask myself that question, because I truly believed I only had 2 months to live for a variety of reasons. And I had to ask myself that. And I'll tell you, I wasn't gonna do dinner and dishes anymore. I'm kidding. But if I really truly only had 2 months to live, I would have said, somebody else needs to do this stuff. I have other more important things to do. I have other more important things to do. Because I knew what I would do with those last 2 months. If you've heard my description of my dear girls journals and things that I wrote and all the best life lessons and character development I wanted to teach, that's what was most important. What was my legacy going to be to my children? I didn't want my children looking back when I was gone, whether it was then when I actually did think I only had 2 months to live, or in the future. I don't want my kids looking back and going, gosh, mom was really good at dishes. She was really good at doing the laundry. She was, really good at nagging us to pick up things. I didn't want my kids to have that as their memory of me, and it was really, when I truly believed I had 2 months to live, I was like, gosh, okay, I've done well on some things, but not on others. This is what's important. And it really forced you, if you ask that question, and hopefully you're not actually faced with the reality of it like I was, but when you ask that question, it puts things in perspective. Yes, I understand, again, dinner, dishes, driving, a lot of the things in the home need to get done, but there's a lot of stuff that you're probably doing, and I know that I used to do, I don't anymore, but that I used to do, that was busy work. That's, not part of creating my best life or helping my children create theirs. This is just one example. I've always loved, when they were little, volunteering in the classroom. And in the classroom with my children. And that I did. Now I don't volunteer. There are plenty of other moms who do. I don't feel the obligation to, because I spend more than enough time with my children. But and I'm glad that other moms do this. But something I say no to, and I did before breast cancer, but now it gives me an excuse, is I don't go volunteer in the library or at the front office. If it doesn't have to do specifically with my children and it's not in line with my values and priorities, I don't do it. If the school absolutely couldn't find someone else, sure, I might step up, like I have to be room mom on occasion, even though, when no one else did. But generally speaking, I say no. So that brings us to the second thing. Number 1, prioritize. What are your values? What's most important to you as far as yourself and as a parent? And that's where it starts. If you know what's most important, it's easy. It's easy. If you pretend you have 2 months to live, it's easy. Would you do this? Yes or no? if you only had 2 months to live. The second thing is you've got to just learn to say no. You have to, I love this, and I don't know where I heard it or maybe I made it up. You have to say no to the good or the bad so you can say yes to the great. We only have so much time. Being a stressed, crazy, overwhelmed person is not good for you, and it's not good for your children, and it's not modeling health and wellness, right? Or happiness. So you have to learn to say no to things. And again, I was always really good at that, but after breast cancer, I was a pro because that was a good excuse. People didn't understand before when I would say no, and I got tired of explaining that it was not in line with my values or whatever. But I said, listen, after having breast cancer and knowing what's most important, I'm just not going to do that. Thank you for the opportunity. And women need to get better at that. Here's a great, I've read, the most famous book, one ever, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I actually have 3 copies of it, plus a digital copy because I just kept buying it when I wouldn't find it years ago. And I have highlighted, read this so many times, and of course there's so many lessons in here, but there's one in particular where Stephen Covey's wife is saying something because she wished she'd said no to something, and I've never forgotten this, and I've highlighted it every time I read it. And it says, I'm just going to quote from page 156 in my copy. Then she called one of her dear friends to ask if she would serve on her committee. Her friend listened for a long time and then said, Sandra, that sounds like a wonderful project, a really worthwhile undertaking. I appreciate so much you're inviting me to be a part of it. I feel honored by it. For a number of reasons, I won't be participating myself, but I want you to know how much I appreciate your invitation. And then it says, Sandra was ready for anything but a pleasant no. She turned to me and sighed. I wish I'd said that. Oh my gosh, I have used this. I can't even tell you. Thank you, Stephen Covey. I know you're no longer with us, but thank you. That was one of those pivotal things. I do that all the time. I use a paraphrase of that, and I read it because I usually get it wrong. But thank you so much for the opportunity. For a variety of reasons, I won't be able to participate in that right now, but thank you so much for thinking of me. I mean, what can people say to that? And it's true, and it's from the heart. And again, you have to pick and choose. If it's something really important to you and it's great, and it's part of creating your best life or helping your children create theirs, then do it. I'm not saying you have to decide. I'm telling you, I'm giving you examples of what's important to me and what's not. You have to decide what your values, what your priorities are, right? What your best life is. I'm just giving you a framework to work with, which is know what's most important to you, what your values and priorities are, and then say no to the good so you can say, or the bad, for sure say no to the bad, or the stressful so that you can say yes to the great. Then the third thing you have to do is just now take things off your list. Don't add more using that, philosophy of, is it part of creating your best life or not? Now you have to start taking some of the unimportant stuff off of your list. And a great way to figure out what those things are is if you look at your list and you see something on it. Now, again, something that absolutely must be done, even if you don't want to do it, yes, I get it. Totally not talking about that. I'm talking about the things that you don't absolutely have to do. You do not have to volunteer at your school library or at the front desk. You don't have to unless you have a school that makes you, and then that's crazy as far as I'm concerned, because we grew up, our parents weren't allowed in the schools. I don't know what's gone on where everybody now goes to school all the time. It's crazy to me. But anyway, that said, to me, unless your school makes you do it, that's a choice. Now, you can choose because maybe it is important to you to volunteer at the front desk. Maybe you get a lot of social interaction out of it. Maybe your kids like seeing you there, whatever the case may be. If that is part of your values and priorities, do it. It's just not part of mine. If I have the choice between volunteering in the classroom or volunteering in the front office, or not volunteering at all, but if I have the choice between those two, I will take the classroom every time because that's what's in line for me. So it is a choice. Realize if you're as stressed as you are, it's because of choices. Because we don't have to do everything. We don't have to say yes to everything. We can say no, like Stephen Covey's wife wishes she had. You say no. And this is my gut, and I tell my kids this all the time. And by the way, you should be teaching these strategies to your children as well when they go down their list of things. So once you do it, do this with your children, please. Kids are so stressed and overwhelmed these days. It's ridiculous. But I do this with my kids all the time, and I'll give you an example in just a minute of how we just used it. But I always say, if it causes you stress in your gut, if you look at it, and again, if it has to be done, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about choice things. And more things are a choice than you think about, than you probably think are the case. So ask if you really do have a choice or not. Sometimes you don't, but most of the time you do, even if you think you don't. So if it causes you stress in your gut, trust your gut. It's another best life lesson. Trust your gut. If it causes you stress, that's kind of the trigger I used. If it causes me stress, I don't do it. Here's an example just from my life. I met with somebody the other day because I'm looking at maybe doing some media to help promote my products and programs. And he's like, oh my gosh, you have so much information, you have so much advice, you have so much of this, you should have your own TV show. Now he's an expert in this industry, right? He would know how to put my own TV show together and do that, and probably make it very successful. My initial reaction, while I was completely honored and flattered that he thought of that, I'm just sitting there and immediately, huge stress. No way, because I actually had thought about that in the past. I was like, no way would I want to do that. Why? Not because I don't want to share my information, but I can share it right here in my home so that in an hour from now when my kids come home, I'm here. I work very, very hard, but I work on my schedule. And doing a show, aside from the huge amount of costs I found out were associated with it, which I'm not willing to put in, it caused me stress because of all of the commitments that go around that. I need to be flexible with my job. My whole business is teaching children to create their best lives and parents to create their best lives. How can I not be here for my kids when that's my job? Not only is it my job as a parent because I'm home, but it's my job as my business. So I didn't want that stress. So there's one example. Now, my daughter the other day, my 15-year-old, had a great opportunity. She's very busy, she's very smart academically and does very well, and she's had all these opportunities to do things because of it. And she plays lacrosse lacrosse, and so that's a big commitment too. She's a sophomore in high school, and she got this math, this invitation to do some elite math thing. And I'm sure it would look great on her resume. I'm sure, as she said, it would help her get into college, but it caused her stress. She thought she should do it, right? Because gosh, that's gonna help her get into her dream school that is pretty hard to get into, or it might help her. But the more she thought about it, her initial reaction was stress. Then we talked it through, she thought about it, and ultimately, long story short, after going through the process I teach her, very similar to this, she decided that it was not in line. She doesn't want to go into any kind of field related to math, and while it might help her get into college, it might or might not, but even if it did, she was willing not to do it because of the stress, because of the added time it would take her and the stress it would cause next year, because there was a natural time commitment associated with it. And with everything else she had going on, she said no. And it was hard for her to say no. But ultimately when she did, she was relieved. And that's another clue. If you're relieved after you say no to something, guess what? Good choice. So anyway, those are 3 things you should do yourself. Prioritize what are your values. Just say no to the good so you can say yes to the great. And then get some of those things actually off your list. Again, there's more to it than this, but today you can start those 3 things today. The next time, remember what Stephen Covey said in the book, the next time you have an opportunity to do something, somebody asks you to do something, and even if in the beginning it's like, oh, that sounds great, if you get that little pit in your stomach and that little stress, and say no, just say no. Use the quote, rewind the video if you don't have the book, and use a similar or the same quote, and feel good about it, because you can't do everything and be happy. You can't be completely overscheduled, overstressed, and overwhelmed and be happy. And guess what? If you're not, your kids aren't going to be either. You need to model your best life for them. And you also, again, by the way, kids are so stressed, like I said, they need to go through this process. It's really important to do. And ultimately, if my daughter doesn't get into college because of that one choice, that's the college she wants, that's okay. Is that likely to happen? Who knows? Probably not. But she knew that may be a factor. But again, it doesn't matter because it wasn't worth the stress. Hope that helps. A little longer than usual, but I just think this is such an important thing, and I think so many parents, moms in particular, are so stressed and overwhelmed and pulled in so many different directions, and I know for sure our kids are, that I thought it was really important to talk about this today, to tell you some real life examples and to kind of let you off the hook. And I do like my 2 months to live. I know some of you may not kind of go with that, and that's okay. come up with your own solution. But I really do use that because like I said, I truly thought I had 2 months to live. And boy, it puts your priorities and what's most important, laser focus. Laser focus. So again, however you want to frame it, but do these things and model creating and living your best life to your children. And part of the way to do that are these 3 steps, and being less stressed, less overwhelmed, and less overscheduled, and helping your kids be too. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you so much for being a mom or dad and for everything you do each and every day. It's a huge job. And if you found value in this video and you think it might help other moms or dads or children, please share it with your mom or dad network so we can all be happier, so we can all create our best lives and teach our children to too. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.